Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today's extra special because my wife and I are heading to Toronto, Canada for my 42nd birthday. It's a place I've always wanted to go to, but never have. I never knew, but Toronto's actually the largest city in Canada and bigger than Chicago, Illinois. We're only there a couple of days, so we only scratched the surface with the amount of things to do. But of course we did the standards, the CN Tower, visited Niagara Falls, and went to the Rogers Center for the Cubs game. And we are heading to Toronto from Dulles Airport. It was pretty empty, surprisingly. Of course, my wife made a friend as we were waiting. The flight was only about an hour, which was really nice. Once we landed, the ride from the airport felt like it took longer than the flight. Traffic wasn't bad until you got to the lakeside, which there's only one road going into the downtown area from the airport. We stayed at the Radisson Blu, which was in the southern part of the downtown area. Of course, I forgot to take any video while I was inside the hotel, so here's a few pictures. It was right on the water and only about a 5-minute walk to the CN Tower and the Rogers Center. And then you could take a Uber or taxi for a short drive anywhere else you wanted to go. Although inside the hotel was pretty nice, I think the best part of this hotel was the pool. The view of the CN Tower was really cool, and you were still right by the lake. Another great thing about this hotel is the walkability. Like I mentioned, you're only about a 5-minute walk from the CN Tower and other tourist attractions. But right outside our hotel, there was a lot going on. The weekend we were there was some type of farmer's market or festival going on. They had a lot of food trucks, live music, and plenty of different things you could buy if you wanted to do that. There were a lot of people out walking around. I don't think this happens every single weekend, but it was nice that we were there during this time. With all this talk of the CN Tower, or Canadian National Tower, let's finally head that way. When you get there, there are a lot of long lines. I would recommend buying tickets online. It's the easiest way to do it. And there's actually 2 observation decks, so you can purchase either the single observation deck or you can book both of them. I'll get to that in a little bit. So walking through the tower, there's a lot of things to read about the history, which is nice when the lines are really long. This is the first observation deck. It can get pretty crowded, and when you look online, it tells you to book the 2 observation decks an hour apart. Honestly, we got bored. We were done with the first observation deck in about 20 minutes, and we were ready to go to the second one, but they're pretty strict about timing and making sure you don't go too early. They only allow you to get in line about 15 minutes before your time for the second observation deck. If you do get bored, there's a little cafe there that you could buy some food and drinks and take in all the views. There's really not much to the second observation deck. Yes, it is a lot higher, but it's a lot smaller, so there really isn't much to do. And for those who aren't afraid of heights, you could go out on one of the observation decks. As you can see, these people are gearing up to head outside. There's no way my wife and I would ever want to do this, but it's cool to see that there's an option to do it. I believe the cost was an extra $200 per person. And there's our pool. It'd be so nice to just lay out and relax. After a very relaxing afternoon by the pool, it's time to get ready for my birthday dinner. We ended up going to a restaurant called Richmond Station. The chef there is the Canadian Top Chef winner. We ended up doing the chef's table, which was right up front. We got to see inside the kitchen and everything that they do. We ended up doing a 5-course prefix menu. Everything was delicious. When we were done with dinner, our server offered to take us into the kitchen and give us a tour.
There's only 7 people making food at one time in the kitchen, which is nice. So here we got hotline, here we got garde manger, and then 1 pastry chef. And then all this here is our executive chef. For you guys, kind of take a look in.
And that wraps up this amazing dinner. Now it's time to go back to the hotel and get some rest. We have a very busy day tomorrow. We'll be going to Niagara Falls. We ended up doing an all-day tour. It had 3 different stops, which I'll get into in a little bit. After an hour and a half, we're at our first stop. They stopped us at this location because it's a little bit before the rapids, and it's actually the most dangerous rapids in the world. They're classified as a class 6 because of the undertow, whirlpools, as well as just the speed of the water. At times it could get up to 35 miles per hour. No one is allowed to swim or boat in this area. Now it's back onto the bus for another 15-minute drive where we stopped to get lunch. The food was nothing special, but it was cool to see some of the things they had here. They made their own fudge as well as made their own maple syrup, which we got to sample. There are 3 different types. The first 2 were for pancakes, whatever you want. The third one was much darker and used for baking or grilling. They recommended putting it on something like bacon or salmon. And we are finally here. This was an incredible sight. It is absolutely beautiful. We were on the Canadian side. We were told the Canadian side is better than the American side. There's more to do, better sights. There's nothing like standing next to the water and listening to the pounding as the water crashes near you. There were 3 different lookouts you could go to. The first one was the nicest, had the most room. The tour guide told us if you're only going to stop at one, the first one is to stop at. The other 2 were pretty similar and probably weren't worth the time it took. We're actually walking underneath the falls right now. After waiting in line for about 20 minutes, this is all we saw. So definitely not worth it. Now it's time to wait in another long line to go on a boat ride. You saw from previously in the video, you saw a boat in the falls. We're going to be going on one of those boats. The line was very long but moved very quickly. I think total time was about a half hour that we waited in line. The ride was fairly short. It only took about half an hour. First, we passed by the American Falls, which is much smaller. And then we get up to the large falls. You won't see much video because of all the water covering the lens.
I can't even see.
I'll show a very small clip of it, but it's really not worth seeing. You really couldn't see anything once you're in the falls, but you could hear all the water around you. And now we are on to our last stop. It's another observation tower that sits on a hill right next to the falls. If I had to choose one observation tower, I would definitely do the Niagara Falls observation tower over the CN tower. It was cool to see the city, but seeing the falls from this height was amazing. And I'm zooming in to show you where we were on the boat. Even though it was a very long day, it was probably the best day of the trip. I would highly recommend the tour. In total, it cost about $450. Now, some of the things you could pick and choose what you want to do. And now it's time for the Cubs game. The stadium was much larger than I expected. I've been to other indoor stadiums, but this one just felt bigger. Overall, the game was fun. The Cubs, of course, lost. There wasn't really much action. Pretty low-scoring game. The Cubs offense didn't really do anything. So the best part of going to the game was kind of in between the innings. They often played a lot of music, and then when the closer came out for the Blue Jays. And that's it. That wraps up our trip to Toronto. We had a lot of fun, and we can't wait for our next adventure.